Something's got to get
If I
this.
could only get out of
Welcome back. Shoot the Gap, week 11. I'm Nate Markham. Joining me is Jorge Edwards, Hollywood Titan. Guys, how we feeling?
I'm good. I took a reduced role on various shows here at Fantasy and Frames, and I'm out 1 week, and then, got to step up to the plate. Mike Woolert, you're sick. Hope you feel better soon, buddy. First of all, miss you. Health is number one priority here. But it's great to be back with you guys.
Nice, yeah. It's a bye week season. Might as well be.
we're doing our own. Really? This is the week that you decided to fill in again? Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Lucky me.
Lucky me. You are. You know what? It's funny that you say that.
I'm on you tonight, by the way. I'm on you tonight.
Oh, it's okay. If anybody has been watching our interactions on Twitter for the past 48 hours, if you don't realize, I make fun of Hollywood all the time when it comes to Taylor Swift stuff, and I definitely have taken it to the nth degree the past 48 hours, which I'm sure Hollywood has loved. But I'm actually going to give you some props right now before I start going down that road of making fun. You, sir, this week in Fantasy Pros ECR IDP rankings, were 10th. Congratulations. That is good for you.
Very proud
no
of
shame
you.
in that game. Hey, like Mariah Carey, I'm a heartbreaker, baby.
Wow.
Yes, we do.
Wow. I wish I had something quick off the top of my head as far as a song. I don't. So I will unfortunately segue into Hollywood. We missed you last week, of course, as you know. Mike and I went mano a mano as far as this show goes, and you missed some interesting pieces. You also didn't get a chance to talk to me about the Titans and the Chiefs game. That was seemed awful. I don't know. Interesting that you had missed that week. What happened? Felt like we got redemption because we never play the Titans play the Chiefs well every time. It was a hell of a game. For the first time, the Chiefs looked pretty bad offensively, but that's okay. So
for the first half anyway.
yeah, exactly. And then, time kind of set in. Eventually knew they would hopefully get going. But hey, at least the Titans weren't headhunting like the Chiefs had to face this past week. But let's not digress on that. Let's get in to some of the news and notes going on around the league this week. Last week was a tale of last minute, game misses, game time decisions that kind of came down to it that, man, if you weren't paying attention, you got crushed. Hell, people like Budda Baker played actually. After a week of he's not playing, Budda Baker logs 100% of snaps. Very confusing. The one player we know who won't be on the field is Minkah Fitzpatrick, who had an appendectomy. Jorge, you remember at the beginning of the season, we talked about Damontae Kazee and how the Steelers were going to play multiple safeties and things of that. Well, that didn't really work out. But here's his chance to actually replace Minkah Fitzpatrick. Hollywood, there's nothing that's going to get you to start Damontae Kazee in a free safety role, correct?
Not for me, no. Unless you're starting like
20 safeties,
5+ safeties. It has to be a super deep league. Other than that, no, there's no way I'm starting him.
Yeah, me either. And I'll tell you a person who I might start is Tyrell Dodson. Tremaine Edmonds left with a groin injury. When Tremaine Edmonds is out, Tyrell Dodson is the one to fill in. When it's been Matt Milano, it was Terrell Bernard to fill in. So Tyrell Dodson, Jorge, any excitement to have him play in the middle of that Buffalo linebacking core?
You mean the Tyrell Dodson?
Whoa, the?
I'm probably there. I don't know much about him, so I'm going to say no. But maybe I don't know. I honestly did not look into him too much this week. Should I be excited about Tyrell Dodson? The Tyrell Dodson?
I mean, I don't know if excitement is there, but middle of a linebacking group that is, I think, doing good job to put pressure on opposing quarterbacks. And I was just getting ready to hit this, Craig.
Oh my God.
Damn, he's on it. Craig has been rock solid. Commenter of the week,
so
2 in a row. Oh,
From the gifts too. He made some really great gifts of Hollywood as well.
Excellent. I think that he deserves all the credit for a segment that we may get to in a little bit. But before we get there, let's. No, not nice to say, Hollywood. It's not nice to say. Deshaun Elliott, concussion.
I have managed to not get banned from Twitter so far.
That's a step up for you. So that's good.
That is a plus. Yes. That's growth.
It is.
Deshaun Elliott, concussion, obviously sucks because from a safety perspective, he was week in and week out. Really a DB1, DB2 every time he got significant snaps, which was pretty much the entire season, especially since Tracy Walker went down.
Right.
Any excitement over any replacement players?
No, so for me, defensive back is one of those positions, especially or particularly in redraft, where it's easier for me to find a matchup, especially if I get strong safety. So I'm not too. I'm pissed. I'm pissed that Elliott's gone. I've been starting him every single week. He's been taking over just the Tracy Walker injury. But is anybody else on the Lions exciting me about at safe? No. To answer your question, no, I'm not excited right now about replacement.
Shouldn't be. CJ Moore is who took over the box safety role for Elliott. I just don't like, I don't want to throw CJ Moore into a lineup situation, kind of like with Jordan Poyer's situation. Poyer, if he plays, did you see his elbow in the videos and the pictures? Good God, it looks like he has a golf ball out the back of his elbow, and they're like, and he wants to play. I personally, if I'm Buffalo, I don't. They play with kid gloves for the entire season. I don't think they're going to start now throwing people out in harm's way. Cameron Lewis filled in for him. Cameron Lewis actually was okay. That's one where, maybe a big splash play if Buffalo gets up and forces the other team to pass a little bit more, but nothing super exciting. Here's one that is, I don't feel like we expected this by any means, but I think that it was like, kind of finally. Shaq Leonard has the back surgery again. This is, I don't know where this stands compared to his offseason back surgery. Maybe people will know more than that. We'll know more than that as time comes. But guys, what do you think from his dynasty value standpoint? Because we know redraft value is gone. He's out for the rest of the season.
And I was kind of okay with this designation, him getting the surgery and being done, because there's some kind of clarity, right, for the season.
Right.
Now you're done with him. Just do whatever. Yeah. Dynasty-wise, he's just so damn talented and so good when he's healthy, right? I mean, you can't really write him off. If this clears everything up, which they're speculating that will, which we've heard this before.
Yeah, exactly.
We've heard this before, same old song and dance. Little Aerosmith there, Q.
Nice.
Yeah, where's that, Mike? Where's that drop for us?
Sorry. Well, you got to tell me ahead of time.
Well, this is what you get with me. I'm just all over the place. So, dynasty-wise, I think he's too good and too talented of a player to just dismiss altogether. I will say if there was ever a time to buy on him, it's right now. Right now. Yep. With all the in and out, the injuries, healthy playing, not playing, now's the time. Then you deal with the fallout later. Did you make the right decision or was it the wrong decision? But I think right now he's a good buy low option.
let me
with
ask
that
you guys
mind,
this real quick.
you're going to have to wait, right? You're going to have to wait till next season. So that's the kicker right there.
Someone offers you Isaiah Simmons for your Shaq Leonard. Isaiah Simmons on the come up as of late. Shaq Leonard on the down.
I'm going to go last here.
All right, Jorge.
No. I agree with Hollywood in terms of there's too much positivity there. You win by default. Don't be so happy that I'm agreeing with you there. That being said, I am kind of concerned about, to answer your question, Nate. No, I'm not making that trade right now. For dynasty value, I actually am a little bit concerned here, and I'm not saying I'm dropping him too far down because I want to say that talent and health will eventually prevail, but health has been an issue for him the past few years. And this dude's having back surgery. Like this is like people who have back surgeries, they normally don't last too long in the NFL, maybe a few years before it starts acting up again. And I 100% agree. This is your time to buy. I'll tell you what, though. I'm not spending more than a mid to high second for Shaq Leonard, though, for Dynasty. I'm not paying a first. I'm not paying a low first. Like that for me, for a back surgery, that took that off the table. Like you're not getting that from me, and I'm not spending that. And if that means I don't get them, I don't get them.
So Hollywood, by that knowledge, when you say buy now, and now is a buying window, is the window for Shaq Leonard a second and a third something that realistically would get that done in your eyes? Yes or no? What do you think to that?
Yeah. A second, I think no. I think realistically you gotta pass on a second. If you can get him for a third or later, you're taking that all day long because the upside, right?
Right.
Like Jorge said, the injury, that's a back surgery. That's not something that you sneeze at or you overlook. But we always do the same thing. Potential. What can I get? I mean, we do it with rookies. We do it with, whoever. If it's a late second, I would strongly consider it with what my team needs or whatever. But I think third's where it's at. If it's a third or later, I think you go ahead and pull the trigger. If it's anything other than that, I think you got to pump the brakes and say no.
Gotcha. In other news, Emmanuel Ogbah tore his tricep. He'll be out for the season. Miami Dolphins were definitely loading up on edge rushers and pass rushers galore, kind of taking the Buffalo Bills approach. And as a result, they're just one fewer. But I think that might lead to a little more snaps for Melvin Ingram, potentially. I think Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips are kind of set in their ways, somewhere around 60 to 65%. Melvin Ingram saw 50% this past week. Even though Ogbah wasn't playing a ton, he still was valuable across that defensive line. Zadarius Smith, who maybe is the best free agent pickup on the season so far. I think that IDP defensive sided players don't typically get the respect they deserve, but he's been, I don't know anything to say besides absolutely wonderful for exactly what they brought him in to do. Suffered a knee contusion. I don't worry too much about it, but it is something just to pay attention to. We talked on Jordan Poyer earlier. Here's a couple IR activations. Jorge, we mentioned this 2 weeks ago. I say your boy, he's not your boy, but you know what I mean. The commander in Chase Young activated. Does he play? I mean, what do you do? What are you doing with him? And you can keep it short and sweet. Are you even worried about him yet? If it's not a dynasty and you don't have a super deep bench?
No.
Okay.
There you go. You want short and sweet?
That was perfect.
No. Okay. There you go. Short and sweet. Nope. Not worried about it.
Exactly. I think we all in agreement. I think that's the one thing that should the gap is solidarity. I think we're not buyers of Chase Young. We hope we're wrong because we want talent to rise to the top and do well. But Hollywood, what about Jeremy Chin? Should be able to go this week. Potentially, they could sit him out, I guess. They don't really have much to play for. But if he's back, is he starting as a DB1 or DB2 for you this week?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think you kind of got to wait and see, right? I mean, we talk about potential upside and all this, but he's been out for the last few weeks or whatever. So I'm taking a sure thing over somebody coming off of an injury and the potential upside. I want to see a week or 2 weeks, even if they are stud. I just think that's the smart play. If you've got somebody that's been producing the last 4, 5, 6 weeks or whole season over somebody that's been hurt and coming back, I think you got to kind of pump the brakes and go with a sure thing. So, if he does it this week and next week, then I think you're back on the saddle with him. But for now, I'm pumping the brakes.
Do you think people with IDP versus offense care more or less about draft capital in the redraft leagues?
Less.
I guess
less.
I think less. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think IDP as a whole, draft capital, trades, value, I think IDP takes a backseat to offense everywhere. I mean, it's rare that you find a few leagues where overall IDP is valued the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I mean, outside it seems
at least
like
that's my experience from what I'm seeing and hearing, DMs or questions or whatever. I just think IDP always takes a back seat.
Yeah, there's a lot of players. I mean, when we see at the season's end of the IDP MVPs or IDP Rookie of the Years, it's not always the first picks that we've seen so far. Obviously, it still has to play out this year. Last year with Micah Parsons kind of did well, but we get the idea. It's just it is. I think there's always less involvement in leagues, but we're here to change that, and we're here to change that opinion of that. We're also here to potentially change people's opinions on some waiver wire moves that you may have sitting in front of you, you may have made last week or this week. I want to know for this week and even maybe going forward, is the waiver wire gem that you just secured going to be money, or is it going to be a mirage? And I'll start with AJ Epinesa, a person who going into week 10 was in my IDP waiver wire article over at fantasyandframes.com. And I said, it's odd to think that the Bills pass rush has been a disappointment over the past few weeks, but you go back to week 6 versus the Chiefs when they had 36 pressures, they've generated less than 10 in both games over the past 2 weeks. And then you have Gregory Rousseau, who's missing time. And Epinesa was going to see the biggest uptick in snaps. And what did that turn into? Turned into a defensive line 1 overall for the week. But going forward, Hollywood, do you expect Epinesa to keep that up, or is it just simply a mirage?
For me, I think he's a money play. His first, come as a rookie last year, they wanted to switch him from defensive end to outside linebacker, which really wasn't his natural position. And you're kind of seeing that switch back to defensive end this year. And now you're seeing the production out of him, right? He's a rotation naturally with Von Miller and Russo and those guys. But last week he played 50 snaps, defensive snaps, which was 60%, which was his season high. 3 tackles, a tackle for a loss. He had a sack, 2 pass deflections. I think when you can play him at that kind of level, I think he's going to be a play each week, especially in deep leagues. It's all about position playing for him. I mean, if you're playing him as an outside linebacker, that was just wrong by Buffalo, and I think they corrected that. McDermott saw that, hey, he's a defensive end. Put him in a rotation, and let's go with there. And I think you're seeing the production out of him. It's going to be a tier 1 guy. I don't think so, but a tier 3 guy, I'm all in on him, because you're probably in IDP leagues, you're probably starting 2-3 defensive ends, especially in position specific. So, and And I like I like the uptick in plays too. So
it wasn't. Go ahead. Sorry, Jorge.
Sorry, I was gonna say what makes Ebenezer such a money play for me is he did this against the tackles of the Minnesota Vikings, who are two of the best pass blockers in the NFL. So that gives me extreme confidence in his upside. If he's able to have that type of performance, and again, this is all dependent on Rousseau and when he comes back. But for the time being, yeah, I'm again, whoever attended the Von Miller Pass Rushing Academy from the Buffalo Bills, they're okay in my book, and it's showing.
Yeah, his
and here's another thing. Rookie year, 14 games, 1 start, he had 1 sack. Year 2, 14 games, no starts, 1.5 sacks. This year we're at the halfway point. 9 games, 10 games, depending by week. 9 games. He already has 3.5 sacks, so he's clearly they've figured out what his role is, and it's working for him. So, I mean, at this point, he's probably going to be a 6 to 8 sack guy, and you're getting him as a defensive end 3, defensive end 4 at best. That's money right there. I'm taking that all day long.
Yeah, let's get the pressure rate up just a little bit. The win rate can improve. He has Ed Oliver, who last week had 9 pressures lined up on that right side with him. And I think that probably had a little bit to do with it. We talked about the interior linemen for the Minnesota Vikings and Ezra Cleveland and Ingram and how bad they are. I think that's
what a freaking game that was below Minnesota. Whew. Jeez.
Oh, yeah, that was incredible.
I don't know if you guys watched that, but
from beginning to end.
Stephon Diggs and Jefferson alone put on a freaking show.
It was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. I will say I thoroughly enjoyed that for more reasons than one. But moving on to the next spot, we have another defensive end in a situation that is making best use of a rotation of sorts, if you will, and that's Charles Omenihu, who with Nick Bosa and then Drake Jackson, Jordan Willis, saw a 77% snap share this past week with a 17% pressure rate and a 20% win rate. And I wonder, is this just a sign of the fact that he is truly money because Samson Ebukam is out? Or is it a mirage because Samson Ebukam was out?
I'm looking at his stats from last week. He got you a tackle, a PD, a sack, a forced fumble. I feel like a lot of his plays came off of splash plays, and I would like to think when I'm looking at defensive linemen and defensive ends, I always see I always envision, okay, well, one defensive end is like the premier pass rusher. The other defensive end is an okay pass rusher, but helps more in the run stopping department. And so when I'm looking, obviously you have Bosa on one side. He's obviously your predominant pass rusher. And then I'm looking at Omenihu, like maybe the pressures were there, but the plays weren't there. And again, I don't know how long Ebukam is supposed to be out for, but I don't know. I'm kind of concerned here. A player that I thought was going to start last week, even though he plays on Bosa's side, I was hoping that they would switch him to the other side. Was Drake? Is it Drake Jackson?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
rookie.
Yeah,
I was pretty high on him coming into the season. I was surprised they didn't utilize him more. But Omenihu got the start, and he got you 11 fantasy points. So in Fantasy Pro scoring, I don't know. You bring up a good point about the pressure rate here, but I'm concerned that this may be like a flash in the pan performance.
So the one thing with the 49ers that they've done well to generate so much pressure is they have a ton of different stunts that they're running, and they're lining up across the line. They were highlighting that in the past couple games. They've really got versatility out of all the defensive linemen because of their ability to play inside and out and speed and power rush. It's interesting to see but that scares me. That's why I think it's a mirage with you, is that any given week outside of Bosa, I don't know who it's going to be. And the same thing can be said about this next person, Hollywood, and that's Jonathan Cooper. We know Denver has a beaten up, if you will, offense or defensive line. They they have Nick Benito, and Jonathan Cooper is, I don't want to say the next man up type thing. That might be a stretch. But what we did see is we saw he had the largest snap share of all of them, 70% versus Benito's 50 and Jacob Martin's 35.5. Martin freshly coming over from the Jets. But with Bradley Chubb off to Miami, Baron Browning out, who was close to returning and considered likely for week 11, is Jonathan Cooper a mirage, or is he money?
I think he's a mirage for me. I mean, that's what I put him for the season. Maybe if you're playing week to week, right now, I mean, you're looking, like you said, 70% snap share. But he didn't do a whole lot with it, right? 4 tackles, 2 solos. That's not eye-popping numbers, even as a starter. So, I mean, even last week, 50% snap count, 5 tackles and 1 solo. So that was his 2 starts for the season. Not something that's saying, oh, I need to go get him. I need to start him. So for me, I mean, that's a mirage because I don't think it's going to get much better than what you're seeing right now. So
fair enough. I don't like those type of rotations. When a player is hurt or out like Baron Browning and someone like Jonathan Cooper steps up, tries to get an the playing time and utilization, it's short-lived. Tell you who might not be short-lived as a result of the retirement of Blake Martinez is Jayon Brown. Obviously, with the Raiders, they didn't know exactly how to address that because Denzel Perryman was out. You have Jayon Brown. You got Luke Masterson and Darian Butler. And of those names, Jayon Brown saw 100% of snaps. He blitzed on 3%. 13% tackle rate. Nothing crazy, but you two may be going different directions. And briefly, Jorge, tell me why you think Jayon Brown could be money the rest of the season.
He's just a better solo tackler. With Perryman potentially out another week. You mentioned his name, Luke Masterson. He came in, he got you 6 tackles, but 4 of them were assisted. So, I mean, you've seen the production from Jayon Brown in Tennessee. You know that he can give you a solid floor at the linebacker position.
I don't know how you can really say he's got the solo tackles. He had 8 tackles and 4 of them were solos.
That's more than Masterson.
There's a reason Tennessee let him go. There's a reason they let him go twice. Twice they let him go.
Who would you rather start, Masterson or Jayon Brown?
Masterson. I'll take the outside with Masterson. Yeah, hell yeah.
Okay. All right.
We gotta have a water bet. If the Perryman doesn't play this week, let's see who outperforms who. Masterson. Wait, they're playing this week, right?
Is Masterson healthy? Because he got hurt last week a little bit there.
I don't see that he's questionable. I think last I saw he should be okay. But
I mean, I'm a firm believer. When a team lets you go twice, there's a reason. The first time because it was the elbow injury. They didn't have anybody else really in-house, so they brought him back, right? And they gave him another chance, and he still couldn't take advantage of the opportunity, and they let him go. So Tennessee let him go twice. That tells me all I need to know about him.
All right. Hey, that's
you know what? Let's do that. I'll be back next week, even if it's just for this segment. Okay. If it comes down to the starting linebackers,
I'll sweep you like I always do.
Very funny. Or Masterson and Jayon Brown. If those are the 2 starting linebackers there, and Masterson outperforms Jayon Brown, I will take 2 glasses of water and do a water bet live on the show. But you have to agree to do the same if Jayon Brown outperforms Masterson.
Okay.
Sounds like we got a bet. Let's go ahead and make this interesting so there could be a push. Caden Ellis, Pete Werner having surgery, will be out. Caden Ellis is next man up in that rotation there. We saw this past week that really it's DeMario Davis's middle of the field. It's his house, and what Caden Ellis is kind of just renting some time. But he was, he played 96% of snaps. He was blitzed more than Demario Davis, but sub 10 tackle rate, nothing to write home about. Hollywood, you see, this is your chance again. Do you think Ellis is a mirage, kind of like you did with Jayon Brown, or is Caden Ellis money?
I think he's a mirage too. Until last week, he had not played more than 39% of the snaps this season. And that's with 1, 2, 3, including 4 starts. So I kind of feel like this is fool's gold. 5th start, he gets 96% of the snaps, 7 tackles, 3 solos, a quarterback hit, a TFL, forced fumble. If you look back before this week, the numbers don't match, right? 5 tackles, 4 solos was his best week on a 57% snap share, which was week 9. So the previous 8 weeks, he was a mirage. And so week 9, you're kind of whatever. And then week 10, he busts his out. I'm not trusting him. He's been mostly a special teams player. You're looking at probably, off the top of my head, looking here, 83% there. The volume just don't match up for me. So I'm going to say he's a mirage.
And I think that the volume didn't match up because Pete Werner was on the field healthy with Demario Davis, and there was no spot. Who would you say would step in? Zach Bond? Is Zach Bond going to get the snaps? Because if that's the case, that's gross. You know that. You can't say that Zach Bond's a better option than Caden Ellis.
That's definitely gross. If it's me, I'm staying away from the whole situation.
And that's a fair answer. And that's a very fair answer. Jorge, what do you think for this week or going forward for Caden Ellis?
So I don't think about going forward because I see Pete Werner coming back, and that's just going to be the end of that. For this week against the Rams, I do like him this week. What I like about him is they didn't make him be Pete Werner, but Demario. They didn't try to turn him into a player that he wasn't per se. Like he wasn't patrolling the middle with.
Where would you put him? LB3, LB4?
Yes.
Kind of where you.
Just because of the fact that they utilized him in rushing the passer so much, like he did get a sack, he did, and it's against this Rams offensive line that sieves pressure to defensive players. I could see him having a splash play again this week. He may not get you 17.5 points, but maybe like 11 or 12 in Fantasy Pro scoring. I could see that happening this week, just given the fact that how he was utilized in rushing the passer, or at least disrupting the running game in the backfield, as he was rated as one of the better run stoppers last week, according to Pro Football Focus.
Gotcha. And to round out the final 2 free agent wise, Jorge, you and I had a conversation last week, and you mentioned on the You Down with IDP podcast, I believe, when we were discussing Julian Love versus Dane Belton.
Yep.
And the one thing I said that I was going to focus on to see, just because I wasn't certain who was going to inherit Xavier McKinney's position, if you will. And what we saw is that it was Julian Love. He played the majority of the deep snaps. Dane Belton, on the other hand, played more of the box snaps. Hollywood, knowing what you know now after a week, would you consider Dane Belton money or a mirage?
I think immediately he's money, right? Because I kind of switched back and forth on this one, but I think he's money as long as he's a starter. So he started 3 games. In those 3 games, he's had 5 tackles, 6 tackles, 4 tackles. And the solo numbers there, 5, 5, and 2. So you're looking at 15 tackles, 12 solos. Now he's added an interception, a pass deflection, or 2 pass deflections. So for me, the numbers are tying in as him being a starter. Relegate him to a backup role, I think he's a mirage. But if you can get him as a starter and know that he's starting, I think there's some upside there. I think there's we say money or mirage, but I think there's a little bit of money there. There's a little bit of what do you call it? A little bit of
I think value.
Value, yes.
Yeah, he's definitely a potential value there. On the other hand, we have a situation where we have a safety in LA with the Rams in Nick Scott, which again, we went back to the beginning of the season where we had conversations of Nick Scott versus Taylor Rapp for that Rams starting safety position. Who knew they were both going to be starting safeties in week 10, both seeing 95% of the snaps. Nick Scott saw 23.5% of the box snaps and 20% at the slot. He's seeing, 100% of the snaps in damn near, I think it's 7 weeks straight now. Does that make him a money play with just the total amount of snaps, knowing that offense is as bad as it is and him being on the field?
Volume.
That's what I say.
To see a lot of volume going forward. And it's crazy. And I do remember when we were talking about this in August, Nick Scott, if memory serves, and please tell me if I'm making a mistake here. Special teamer for a long time, solid tackler, came in the playoffs last year, played pretty well in the Super Bowl. Didn't know what was going to happen coming into this season. And obviously we saw, and now here you go. What do you have? Like 8 tackles last week, 9 tackles. So, yeah, I mean, the Rams are going nowhere super fast. And so the defense is going to be on the field a lot. So a product of volume, I think.
Yeah. And I think that's, if there's one thing we've learned is that volume is the key to damn near everything. But what else is key is paying attention to trends, and can things change? Do you look at what's happened and do you let that just wear you down, beat you down, but yet you continue to play that person, or you don't because you don't trust it? Or do you look at this guy who maybe you invested in and you know that he's bound to pick it back up, and you'll just simply
Cause the players gonna play, and the haters gonna hate, baby. I'm just gonna shake. Shake it off. Heartbreakers gonna break, and the fakers gonna fake, baby. I'm just gonna shake it off.
I'll never get sick of that. Ever.
Both
But
of you
the first
can eat a big pile of shit.
Well,
Both of you.
that
Both
is
of
very fitting for the first
It's fitting,
person.
mate. It's definitely fitting.
I gotta know, are we going to shake off the Trey Hendrickson season he's had to date? Trey Henderson, owner of only 2 top 36 finishes.
Jesus. What a freaking
weeks.
downfall, right?
I mean, I don't know.
Wow.
What do you do with Trey Hendrickson?
I don't think it's a question of what do you do. I think it's a question of what can you do.
Yeah.
Huh?
I mean, what can you do?
I mean,
you can't drop him. Can you?
No, you can't drop him. There's probably no way that you trade him. He's not played 60. He's played 60% or less of the snaps in the last 3 games, which was week 9, 8, and 7.
Yep. All right, Jorge.
Ugh.
Yep. Yeah.
Who does he have this week? Pittsburgh Steelers. We've talked about the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line as being a an opportunity or an
And he averages
opportunistic.
2.7 tackles and 0.7 sacks against them in 3 games. So
Okay.
less than a tackle a game, less than a sack a game.
Wow,
Well,
I would have expected more. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, last year we saw his first year with the Bengals. He was sacker bust, and the only issue is that he was getting a lot of sacks, so that worked out well for you for IDP situations. I will say though, I did drop him in a league recently.
Oh,
Granted, it only had 1 defensive line spot, so that's the only situation that I would drop him in a fantasy league.
Yeah. But that's fair.
I think he's again, and this is kind of why I brought up the question earlier about what do we consider with draft value with IDP players. In Hollywood, you said it best. We throw that sucker out the window because there's plenty of names to go off of.
right.
He has reached for me matchup dependent level start, and so this is it. This is it again. Like this is it against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like this has to be a week where he gets you a multi-sack game. If he doesn't, I will find some dual
You're going multi-sack for a guy that's not even averaging a sack against him?
This has to be it. This is the only good matchup he has left this season. If it doesn't happen, like I'm done. I'm done with him this season.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow. What a stretch.
All right. That's all right.
Jesus Christ, what a stretch, Jorge. Ooh, look at you with the big balls this week.
We are definitely a Trey Hendrickson fan club around here for sure. I'll tell you who's probably not getting too many endorsements in his fan club this year are the Las Vegas Raiders fans. My guess in Chandler Jones quite possibly could be one of the worst free agent signings of any team this year. 6% pressure rate on the season, half a sack. That's not bad. That is about $140 million a sack or whatever the number is, I think, is at this pace that he's on. But I will say this, Hollywood, I actually am recommending Chandler Jones as a start this week against this Denver Broncos offensive line, especially the left side, that is really bad with all the injuries they have.
Why?
Why are they really bad?
And then it's led you to believe he's a weak starter this week.
Simply matchup. It's the only thing I can come to a conclusion. I don't love it. I think that I would have to be in a desperation spot. But, I mean, I just don't see any way that –
be desperate.
Oh, well, sure. And, I mean, I think that's kind of the whole thing of this. But, my God, when it's went from Garrett Bowles at left tackle, it went from Garrett Bowles, then it went to who was it second? Calvin Anderson most recently. And then before that was another, he moved him to right tackle. So they've been bouncing people around. It's just a mess. And I'm sorry that I don't have that in front. That's terrible offensive line update like I'm supposed to have. I'm supposed to be the offensive line guy. But that's what I think. I'm shaking off Chandler Jones for 1 week only. I hate it. I don't like him. But I think that the matchup, we're going to see a week. But don't buy into it for the rest of the season. Don't get duped.
I'm shaking him off for this season and next season and the guy I did next, Robert Quinn. When you say Chandler Jones, I automatically think Robert Quinn. Both of them.
70 years old between the two of them.
Straight trash this year.
Yep.
Had huge years last year, especially Robert Quinn, right? And you can't get jack freaking shit for either one of them right now. You couldn't pay somebody to take them off your hands right now.
So what would you be would you get more or less in fantasy trade value than what the Bears got for him from the Eagles? The Eagles got a fourth.
Less right now in fantasy value. Robert Quinn he's been garbage, right? 3 games since he's traded, and here's his stats: 2 tackles, 1 quarterback knocked down.
Yeah.
Really? Mm-hmm. With that defensive line, Hargrave, Brandon Graham, God,
Josh Sweat,
Josh Sweat,
Fletcher
and
Cox,
the other Fletcher Cox. I mean, that's and Derek Barnett's out.
Hassan Reddick.
Oh my God, straight garbage.
Now,
let me ask you a question, Hollywood. Then, if you had to make lemonade out of these three, who would you? Hendrickson, Jones, Quinn.
You're screwed.
It's straight piss. No, there is no lemonade to be had.
Straight piss. It's freaking. If you had to make lemonade out of those three, you're going to end up with freaking Miller Lite. That's what you're getting.
Fair
The
enough.
segment brought to you in part by Budweiser.
Not our sponsor
King
anymore.
of beers.
Hey, Anheuser-Busch.
Yeah,
Back in your neck of the woods, bro.
Right around, not too far down
Hey, I ain't
just a
I
little bit
ain't
of
hating.
ways. Nope.
I'm just
Yep,
saying.
the one thing that we will agree.
Hit a brother up. I'm your best spokesperson. I promise.
Show
you.
the can. Show the can. You still have
a
it.
really good spokesperson.
Hey, I don't play.
So, hey, guys, I have a question of this. Deion Jones, the last couple weeks, realistically, has looked like he's been, I don't want to say replaced because he's not being replaced, but Sion Takitaki has been the lead linebacker as far as IDP productivity. Jorge, are you shaking off Deion Jones's, I would say, inferiority to Takitaki, or are you simply shaking it off?
Yeah, I'm leaning towards Takitaki than I am Deion Jones, to be honest with you. I feel like he's more familiar with the defense. He's been there longer. Deion Jones, something hasn't been right since last year in Atlanta. And you're seeing that domination. I think it comes down to expectations. If you're expecting Deion Jones of 2017, 2018, like that should have been gone a long time ago. And just because he
Right.
by default
Mm-hmm.
became the lead inside linebacker for the Browns, should have meant nothing other than, okay, he could be like a weekly fill-in here, not like the next savior at the position. So I'm leaning. I'm not shaking it off. I'm going to lean Takitaki's way this week in going forward.
All right. And then finally, the one that I want to, I don't know if I'm going to shake off or not. I need another week to see because of the sudden change. Antoine Winfield, upon return, had played this past week in week 10, 88% of the snaps at deep safety, contrary to his typical involvement at near the line of scrimmage and slot coverage work. If that's a sign of things to come, I am not going to shake off his, the potential poor production as of late. Prior to that, in the slot, he's been wonderful. So I want to believe, but I have to see involvement, because without that, I don't know if we're going to. And so as we move on, that has been week 11 segment.
Cause the players gonna play, and the haters gonna hate, baby. I'm just gonna shake it off. Heartbreakers gonna break, and the fakers gonna fake, baby. I'm just gonna shake it off.
Did you know that was the best segment in the entire world? Did you hear that? Did you see that?
Top 2 or top 3 for sure. I think it is very fitting that T Swift includes the lyrics into that song. They're going to fade as we go into plays and fades, which is great. Players going to hate. And I don't really know the words. So Hollywood, how's it go? I don't care. We know what plays and fades, guys. We're kind of cutting it close. So instead of going into multiple different plays and fades, I want to keep it optimistic and positive.
Okay.
We're going to give people in bye weeks not who you should sit, because guess what? You're probably up against the wall. Let's look at some players that you might be able to find on the waiver wire or deeper that you're going to play Jorge, give me one at defensive line.
Going to go Jonathan Allen of the Washington Commanders. Over the past month, he's led all interior defensive linemen for Washington with 13 total pressures. He has a win rate of 18.1% against opposing offensive linemen. And let's be honest, without having Chase Young on the opposite side, offensive linemen are pulling towards more of the Montez Sweat, Deron Payne side, freeing up Jonathan Allen with those one-on-one matchups. Going against the Texans, offensive line over the past month has given up the most sacks and most pressures during that time span. Fire up that commander this week.
If there is one play that I can back 100% no matter what, is whoever is at defensive right tackle against the Houston Texans. God bless Kenyon Green and Scott Quisenberry. They have been atrocious on the season. My past 2 weeks, like I said, Javon Hargrave, monster week, defensive line #1 overall. Last week, Dexter Lawrence, defensive lineman 1. Maybe not the #1 overall, but I believe he was 3 back-to-back weeks. That's the type of production you will get. Jonathan Allen can be had on the waiver wire. Solid play, Jorge. Hollywood, do you
sir?
You want to agree? You want to give the thumbs up and actually agree with Jorge on Jonathan Allen here, so we can? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one thing he's got right tonight. So yeah.
I would have thought you would have given me the middle finger up versus the thumbs up, but
that's still a 1. Hey,
exactly. That's
still the #1. I'm going to take a look at linebacker here. Actually, you know what? No, Jorge, I want you to give me one more defensive lineman.
Sure, I'll stick in that game. And I've had him as a start for a defensive lineman for the past few weeks in my IDP start article. You talked about him in your IDP waiver wire article this week on Fantasy and Frames. That's Jerry Hughes going again in this game versus the Washington Commanders. Hughes has tallied the third most sacks and is tied for the 10th most pressures over the past month for the Houston Texans. In Fantasy Pro scoring, he is the DL6, averaging 15.6 points per game in the past month. If you're into interior defensive line play, if you're into sacks, if you're into pressures, if you're into seeing big behemoths just go at it, this is going to be the game for you.
I think I like the way that sounds. I might have to fire up Jerry Hughes, guys at linebacker. A play I'm kind of shocked he's as low as he is at the LB 42. A personal favorite, I think, of the IDP community right now is Captain Jack Sanborn. Has been, nothing short of spectacular, guys. And as the LB 42, low upside, I think he has LB 2, maybe not LB 1, but pretty close. We saw last week 90% of the snaps. It's really close. I'll tell you one thing that stood out.
Damn close.
A near 18% blitz rate this past week, which when the when the Bears are getting at it, they can get at it. And I got to tell you, I like that matchup specifically for that reason too, because Atlanta, Atlanta's going to run the ball. We know that. And that's a perfect situation for Sanborn and Morrow. But Atlanta this past week showed that when they get behind, if they get behind, they have been passing a little bit more. At least that was last week. And if that's the case, more pass opportunities, send Sanborn and let him get at it. I feel like 42's too low for him, especially when you look at a person like Pete Warner, who's 47 on this list, or JOK, who's 44. I can't ever suggest any of them. I'm going to also take at linebacker 35. I think Quay Walker against Tennessee is just, as long as Devondre Campbell's out, how can you not start any linebacker that's going to have Derrick Henry running at you 40 times? Maybe that's a stretch.
Right.
You get the idea. But again, just seems like upside. I think both of those two finishing inside the LB 1-2 conversation is a pretty good possibility. And we'll just, we'll see how that works out. Hollywood, who you got at defensive back? Who you wanting to play this week?
Yeah, and it's going to sound like a homer pick, right? But it's going to be Andrew Adams, the safety for Tennessee. Everybody knows that Kevin Byard's the big dog, the mayor of Murfreesboro, but Amani Hooker's been his running mate, and he's been hurt. Looks like he could possibly miss again this week. So if you go back and look at Adams, he started the last 2 games, 7 tackles in each game, 6 solos in each game, but he started 4 games this year. He's had 5, 10, 7, and 7. So he's had 24, 34, 39 tackles in 4 starts. And you're looking at 18, 21 solos. So if Amani Hooker's out again this week, you've got to start Adams. He's one of those quote unquote variable guys. We talked about Dylan Cole. Mm-hmm. Adams is another one of those variable guys. He likes them. So, and they're playing Green Bay this week. Tennessee has a lot of players out. So I think Adams is a definite start this week, easily.
Yeah, and if you look at Adams and Byard, the nice thing is with that they both kind of flip flop. Neither one's all at deep the entire time, so they take turns playing up in the box. So he's not going to miss out on too many opportunities if Green Bay decides they just want to run the ball entirely. And I think they've been playing a lot more cover 2 shell as of late. Tennessee has, and I think that against a team like Green Bay, where if they can get pressure on Aaron Rodgers, which we have learned from the last show Jorge and I did, that they are elite at pressure. It's just they do it without blitzing that heavy. I think there's an upside there. I like Andrew Adams. Very intriguing play there. And
he's played 98% of the snaps the last 2 weeks as a starter. So 97 in week 9, 97%, and then 100% last week. Yep. So, I mean, the volume's there. So if you're looking for somebody you can grab off of waivers or whatever, definitely go check out Andrew Adams. He's going to be a big play for you. Absolutely.
Might even fill in some more snaps in the slot with Elijah Molden
I think so too.
Leaving with a groin injury as well. And so if you're listening, those are our plays of the week. Again, we have some fades, I'm sure, but you know what? We're going to stay positive in this. We're going to stay positive like Swift would do.
And we're going to we're going to keep it rolling here.
Yeah. And so let's finish up with my second favorite segment now, Sack Lunch, where we take a look at.
I can't express enough
how much you love. Shake it off.
His screen froze at the right time.
Even Jorge got me banned from Twitter for a few days over this bullshit.
Oh, well, you know what always makes the sweet, sweet sounds of Taylor Swift go down better? It's when you get a healthy lunch in you, filled by a couple sacks, which I will say last week.
With both of you motherfuckers right now.
You can do it. You can do it. I got faith in you. Jorge?
Yes, sir.
I want you to tell me who you have as your sack lunch. Let me give Mike his credit and his due. Last week, his call was Brian Burns against Atlanta. Brian Burns turned in 2 tackles, 5 assists, and the sack. Good for the defensive end, 14 overall on the week. Mike doesn't have a pick this week, but he will come back next week stronger than ever. Jorge, who you got?
So Tyree Phillips of the New York Giants is literally one of the biggest liabilities in pass pro, which is why I'm going to go Aiden Hutchinson of the Detroit Lions is going to get you a sack this week.
Hollywood?
I like it.
I love that one.
Yeah. So Jeffrey Simmons is questionable. Bud Dupree's already out. Got a lot of issues up front with Tennessee. Rashad Weaver, he's the guy. He's the gangster.
I mean, since week 1, I kind of got lucky with the Rashad Weaver. You were on the show with us that week, Hollywood.
Yep.
And on with the guys that with no pun intended, sorry. You down with IDP.
And I'll take it one step further. Harold Landry he's out this year with an injury. And Bud Dupree, they signed him to the big contract last year, didn't do anything, has not done a whole lot this year.
Yeah.
2023. Don't be surprised if it's not Landry and Weaver. Dupree could be out.
I mean, talk about a cheap addition on the defensive end that has played.
Yep.
I mean, he's just been great. He's been excellent. And I'm happy that we kind of start talking about him at an early time in the season because, you know, you grow a little fond of players when they do well. I will tell you, I got extremely excited and happy when Dexter Lawrence this past week had the week that he did because he was my sack lunch. They took one of the sacks away from him. I believe it was the second sack of the day that I saw. So he ended up with only one, whereas I wanted the two, and they didn't give it to me. So, I mean, maybe there'll be a scoring change, and it will go back in, and I'll get some credit for that. But until then, either way, he had a solo, 4 assists, got the sack that all that really matters, and a pass defense, 5 QB hits on the day. Again, Dexter Lawrence against, boom, Kenyon Green, Scott Quisenberry, makes me want to take a third defensive tackle in a row in Jonathan Allen, but I'm not going to because you know what? I'm doubling down on Chandler Jones, and it hurts me. It hurts me, but I'm doing it because Calvin Anderson.
Oh, my God.
Calvin Anderson, Dalton Risner, 13 pressures allowed last week to the Titans. Wow. Danico Autry pretty much had all of them, by the way, in case you remember that.
Clearly, you did not listen to nothing we said earlier. Clearly.
I listened to everything that you said, and I said, you know what? I'm sick of winning and getting all these right. I'm going to go ahead and take the biggest half a stack on the season. Here's the reason why also. In addition, I think there's
no one ever
until now. Jerry Tillery. He's going to line up
Chargers last week
and signed by the Raiders, who's starting at defensive tackle next to Chandler Jones. Jerry Tillery's not been that good. I'm just trying to pick it whatever I can because you know what?
Boy, you
got to pick it where you can. I'm reaching. Absolutely. We've speaking of reach, we've reached the end of our show. Week 11, has come and gone basically by the time before we know it. It'll be Monday, and our sweet Shoot the Gap podcast will be getting close to being a teenager here in just a few short weeks. I don't know. Time moves.
I just want to thank everybody for joining and watching us because clearly Hollywood is what they joined and tuned in for. Despite your two shenanigans,
Now, I don't disagree with that because I guarantee people tuned in to hear and see your reaction
to our shenanigans.
Or shenanigans. But I'm guessing it's to see your reaction to, of course,
words cannot express.
Cause the players gonna play, and the haters gonna hate, baby. I'm just gonna shake. Shake it off. Heartbreakers gonna break, and the fakers gonna fake, baby. I'm just gonna shake.
What is better odds, guys? The fact that Chandler Jones gets a sack or that Hollywood Titan can get through Ticketmaster Q to get Taylor Swift tickets? We will find out.
The queue, and I've mailed him to Hollywood, so he should be getting his Taylor Swift tickets pretty soon.
He will. Something tells me that's going to be that Lemonade reference we talked about earlier. Something tells me that's going to see a lot of that. And they want to know when's Hollywood doing a duet with T Swizzle in due time. I'm guessing we get a cease and desist letter first from Taylor Swift's people. Bound to happen soon. Yeah. If that's the case, we had a great run.
I'll welcome it. Please let it happen. Please.
Jorge's going to reach out and text this to Taylor Swift people, and then they will make him an honorary Swift fan club member for calling us out. And then he thinks he's doing us harm, but in reality, he then will be, probably be on her next tour. Probably call you up on stage, say you're fan of the year, and they will have you sing and dance.
Right now.
Hollywood, who's your anti-hero? Because that's Taylor Swift's most popular song now. I didn't know if you knew that or not. Maybe there's a new video we have to make with this new song. I don't know.
I don't know anything about Taylor Swift or
Sure. You
Yeah.
don't.
What
Sure
she
you don't.
sings or doesn't.
Right. Yep.
Something tells me you're going to start this will be the incorporation going forward. Instead of
Oh,
TLC songs, will be T Swizzle songs
That's
getting
right.
worked into our repertoire or repartee. My repertoire could actually work too. I like to
Only
insert
the
that
boss
word.
man would provoke somebody enough to get them banned from Twitter.
You said you would kill me. Okay. Twitter has rules against, although maybe not anymore. Maybe Elon Musk is going to let that slide, but we'll see.
Go Elon Musk because I'm in his favor right now.
Well, folks, thanks for listening. Just remember, bad blood
Who
between
needs
you
friends
two.
when I have you two? I mean, really.
Exactly.
Who needs them?
Yeah, you belong to me, Hollywood. You belong to me.
Oh my God.
We'll see you in this next blank space.